of Selling Later, which lets future home sellers and buyers connect up to a year in advance without selling their information to real estate companies. And I should just be clear up front, I'm not an agent. I'm not a company that's backed by real estate agencies. I'm not anyone in the industry. I'm a frustrated consumer that had a problem and decided to do something about it. And so just to kind of go over quickly a little bit about real estate and why this matters, you look at this segment and I wanted to pull just a more normal year. So I'm just pulling like 2019 numbers where 5.34 million homes were sold. And where intent casting really matters is more than half of them are move up and move down buyers. So they have a townhouse and they want to buy a family home, or they have this giant home and they want to downsize. And so the timing of how you buy and sell, it's actually how I ended up creating Selling Later, because I was in that exact same scenario. But this can also apply to renters too. When their lease is up, they know they want to make a move on this month. But the problem is timing. And this is what I studied the most before I launched Selling Later. And it's basically this. So home sellers know 5 to 10 months they want to sell in advance, and buyers can spend a year searching. But when you list your home until you close, right now, it's 33 days. And so you could spend 9 months thinking about making this move and doing some things to your home, but you have 33 days to list it, find a buyer, find your other home and close, or find an apartment and move. And so I look at that 9 months of just wasted time where you already know, but no one else knows you're thinking about it. And same for buyers, they're searching, but then you happen to look into that fear of missing out. And so what if another home that's better comes along? What if it doesn't? Is this the best I'm going to get? And then when you look at the current, let's look at the current housing market, which is pretty messy. Some homes list and go under an agreement in an hour. Some it's 3 days. And so there's hardly any inventory, but buyers are coming out because there's low interest rates. And then you have a ton of sellers sitting here thinking, I'd like to sell, but where am I going to go? And also, I'm going to make a ton of money if I sell my home right now, most likely, but I'm also going to be paying a ton of money to buy one. And so everyone's kind of in the dark. They're on the outside of the bubble, or they're in that 30-day window. And what's worse is for first-time home buyers right now, they're competing against all cash offers, which when you're a first-time home buyer, that's not necessarily an option for you. But the bigger problem, and this is what I didn't know, at least I had an idea. I didn't know how bad it was, but it's gatekeeping. And so you look at this scenario, you have home sellers on one side and home buyers on the other. But then you have this wall built up because home sellers and home buyers shouldn't connect. And certainly to a degree, like a professional needs to be involved, but you're trained as a consumer to know that you should never speak to the buyers. But it's not necessarily for the reasons you think. It's because there's 4 or 5 groups in the middle that want to be a part of this transaction. So first you look at selling services. If you start connecting directly, there's less chance for them to be involved in the transaction. And when you look at the big picture, there are 2 million real estate agents to sell 5 million homes. And of those 2 million, 1.4 million of them are realtors. And then in the mix of that, you have iBuyers, you have maybe the discount agents, and you have flat fee MLS. And so all these people are competing for your attention, and they don't want you to use someone else. And so they hold that information to themselves. And I feel bad for agents because it's emphasized so much. You can be an agent, you can make so much money, but there's 2 million of them. And so as an agent, you don't want someone taking your clients, so you're not sharing that information. And so once the seller or buyer gets into the selling service category, that's not going to be accessible to the public. And there actually are 2 companies that have ads out right now. One, a major brokerage here in Pittsburgh, where I am, and the other one is in Florida, that have an ad that tells you can go on and look through all our buyer profiles. And they even show on the ad all these buyer profiles, but you as a consumer can't contact them directly. It's baiting you. And they all have these database lists, but it's kind of like dangling the carrot in front of the seller, like, look who we have, come on out. but you're never going to talk to the seller directly or the buyer directly because they have to be in the middle. So then you look at the aggregators. So we're looking at the companies that pulled MLS data. And great, that's helpful. I think it's great. Consumers have more access to see more details on homes and when they're selling. But the bulk of these are marketing platforms because they want to get your info and sell it off to a lender, sell it off to a real estate agent. And that's how they make the bulk of their money. And then this is my favorite, are referral platforms. These are the ones that I didn't know about until I went to the real estate agent conference. And these are the people that claim to help you find the best agent, help you find the best way to sell your home. But really all they do is find an agent that's willing to give this referral platform 30% of the commission they earned because they sold the name. And so you're not necessarily getting a great agent. And so these referral companies are like the middlemen of the middlemen who also don't want you to interact because they want to get you to someone that's willing to pay for your info. And there's a ton of them. And there's now some that you look at Rocket Homes, that's synced up with the Rocket Mortgage, which is part of Quicken. And so that takes me into this last one, which is funnel services. The time a company gets you in their funnel, and I know this is just business, but they don't want you to go elsewhere and there's no options really. It's all, look what I have for you. And while you're here, look at this service. And hey, I know a great lender. But as a consumer, you don't know that there are kickbacks for doing that. You know, I didn't know that until a home warranty company said, hey, we'll give you $60 every time you sell a home warranty to Selling Later members. And of course I said no, and I screenshotted our conversation just for liability purposes when I talk about this. But this is what happens. And so once you get in that funnel, it's almost like while you're here, we'll make it easy for you. But really, it's just, what else can I sell you? What else can I sell you? And then the last little piece are these cameras. You know, these are the middlemen of the middlemen of the middlemen. There are data companies that are just watching. They know the average time people in your area stay in your home. And if that time's coming up, are you more likely to sell your home? Look at your purchases. Have you been buying paint? Have you been buying home improvement? Have you taken out like a home equity loan to maybe do some things to your home? And so as a home seller or home buyer, everybody's watching you, but nobody wants you to talk.
Wendy, sorry, before you move on,
sure.
Can I ask you to clarify MLS for some of our international
absolutely,
attendees?
Absolutely. So this is kind of the system in which all agents put in the home information. And so agents have access to all the information. So down to how much commission is going to be paid. And so in the US, it's between 5 and 6%. And on the MLS, it'll say the buyer agent gets 2.5 and the seller agent gets 2.5. But this is basically just the whole book on the home. And these aggregator sites, they don't pull everything, but they pull enough for you to be able to go through and look at this. Does that make sense? It's kind of like the one place where you can find all the homes that are for sale. Does that make sense?
Thanks, Wendy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so here's the problem. Now consumers have less control, which means there's less chance for savings. And so we talk about commissions. You know, as I said before, like in the US, it's between 5 or 6, but you should know that that has gone down less than 1% since 1992. And then consumer access to the MLS. And, you know, previously it was you go to an agent and they have a CD and you print out the pages and you look through the books and you look at homes you like. But now you don't have to do that. And you go online, and a lot of buyers now find the homes themselves for the most part. But that's been since the early 2000s. And so you think about since 1992, like, why has that gone down less than 1%? You think about technology and phones and accessibility. And then you look at referral platforms. And so you look at them and you think, okay, more and more companies in the startup world are doing this, where they go to agents because there are so many of them and because they're all looking for clients. Hey, I'll give you this lead, but if it closes, you owe me 30%. And all of these companies prop themselves up as a helpful tool to help you find the best agent. But it's not true, because it's based on who's going to pay them 30% of their earned commission. And the problem with that is, I talked to someone at realtor.com who used to work there and did the analytics. And he said, agent spending by year 3 dropped dramatically. And that's because a lot of agents, once they get established, are doing personal referrals. And so you also have to look at it and say, who am I actually being referred to? But this is $1 billion business, and it's made by gatekeeping. And more companies are doing this rather than the simple pay to play, $20 per lead, hope it works out for you. But this leaves consumers with no room to negotiate. Because if, say, I go on Dave Ramsey's preferred agent program, I'm just using him as an example, and I get an agent referred by him. Well, that agent, say, will pay like Dave Ramsey $2,000. So that's coming out of what that your specific agent's earning, but you don't know that. And so that's already agreed upon when they agree to take your information. And so then you go to the agent and you say, hey, I want to talk to you about a buyer's rebate, which is legal in 40 states. And it's just the agent willing to give some of the commission back to the consumer in closing costs. But how can the agent do that if they already gave up 30%? But you as a consumer don't know this is happening. And then you look at disruptive services. Listen, prop tech world is what they call it. So all these companies that are innovative and starting new things, that's great. But a lot of these new selling services are coming at a high cost for convenience, and they're still not directly connecting anybody. It's just another way to quickly sell your home for X%. And the biggest problem with this is they all follow similar patterns. They all start with this idea of, I'm going to help the consumer. And some truly do, but a lot of them start taking investment money. And with that goes some of your equity and some of your control. And the more money you take, the more you give up on what you should be doing. And you have that pressure to have some results. And so when you look at the most profitable piece in real estate, it's selling consumer information. And a lot of them end up having to go that route because they are responsible to make money for someone else. And the biggest piece of this is, we go back to that 2 million real estate agents and 1.4 million of them are realtors. Well, that's governed by the National Association of Realtors. And one of the best real estate agents that I know of in Minnesota specifically told me that when an innovative company starts to become successful that can affect anything in that segment, they will start suing and causing issues to either push them out of business or have somebody buy them. And that's kind of how like the National Association of Realtors got the cartel nickname. And they are the second biggest lobbying group in the US, only below the US Chamber of Commerce. And so you have to look at these scenarios and wonder, like, this is why it's hard for consumers. It's not that you have selling options. It's not the iBuyer's fault, because really you have options and that's great, but it's all controlled and there's still no direct connections. And so I just got mad enough about all this and made Selling Later, which lets consumers connect and promote their home a year in advance without selling any of their information to real estate companies. And I made it before I met Bill Lundell and all these great people who already have been talking about intent casting for years. I didn't even know that was a term until I met with them. And so it's been really neat to listen to see what I've already plugged into play versus where this is headed. It's pretty simple. It's just the current day intent casting solution.